Money is so important. It impacts every single part of our lives, but so many people are not taught basic financial concepts. So today I will be changing that and explaining the 15 most important financial concepts that every single person should understand. I've studied finance for years, I work at an investment bank, so get your pen and paper so you don't forget what I'm about to teach you. Number one, cash flow. So before saving, investing, or any advanced strategy, you need to understand where your money is actually going. And that's what cash flow is. It's simply the money that's coming in, so your income, versus the money that is going out, so your expenses. Think of it like a bathtub. Your income is the water that's flowing in, while your expenses are the water that is flowing out of the drain. Where if more water is going out than is coming in, you can never fill up your tub no matter how hard you try. The same goes for money, where the goal for everyone is to have a positive cash flow, meaning you're making more money than you're spending, as that's how you end up with extra money every month that you can then use to save or invest. Number two, budget. Now, a budget is basically a plan for your cash flow, where the purpose of a budget isn't restriction, but it's to stay aware of what's coming in and what's going out of your bank account, so that you can actually make a realistic plan to spend less than you earn. A budget keeps you grounded so you aren't living in a fantasy just expecting everything to work out. That's the purpose of a budget. Number three, assets and liabilities. Once you have a positive cash flow, once you make more money than you spend, the next question you have to ask yourself is, where is this extra money going? And that's where assets and liabilities come in. An asset is something you own, something that belongs to you, that makes you money. A liability is something that you owe that takes money out of your pocket. So common assets, for example, are real estate, businesses, retirement accounts, while some common liabilities include personal loans, student loans, buy now pay later like Klarna or Afterpay, or even credit card balances, where what you need to remember here is that wealth only grows when your assets are growing faster than your liabilities. So remember, the goal here is to use your cash flow, use your positive cash flow to build assets. Avoid liabilities as much as you can. Number four, net worth. Now we want to look at the bigger picture. Cash flow shows you what's happening month to month, but net worth shows you where you are overall. Your net worth is basically a snapshot of your finances at any point in time. It's your assets minus your liabilities. It's what you own minus what you owe, where you can earn a lot and have a high income month to month, but still have a low or negative net worth if you spend too much or if you have a lot of debt. But you can also have a really high net worth but struggle month to month if your assets don't bring in regular income. For example, someone might have a paid off house worth 500k, but if they're retired with no job or no income, their cash flow each month could be tight. Where net worth is important because it tells you if you're going in the right direction. People who have assets will always find it easier to produce income if they really need to. So if your net worth is going up because you're using your positive cash flow to acquire assets, you're already on the right track. Because remember, cash flow is the foundation, assets and liabilities are the structure, but net worth is the final result. Number five, emergency fund. Now that you understand the basics, the next priority is protection. An emergency fund is basically your financial safety net. It's the money that you have saved for unexpected costs like family emergencies, losing your job, medical bills, or even anything else. And I want to be very clear here. This isn't your investment money. This is your safety money. And it's so important because without an emergency fund, every financial surprise becomes a financial crisis. And a crisis forces you to make bad choices like taking out high interest debt, selling assets that you have at the wrong time. An emergency fund allows you to stop temporary emergencies from becoming financial disasters. So always remember that. That's the purpose of your emergency fund. Number six is interest. Interest often sounds complicated, but it's really not that complicated. Think of money like something you rent. When you rent a car or an apartment, you don't own that car or that apartment. You're just paying to use it. Interest works the exact same way, but with money. When you borrow money, you're essentially renting someone else's money. So you pay a fee to use it, and that fee is interest. When you save or lend money to someone else, you're letting someone else use your money, so they pay you a fee to use your money, and that's also interest. So you see here, it's the exact same idea, but two sides of the same coin. You either pay the fee or you earn it. You either pay interest or you earn interest. For example, high interest debt like credit cards or personal loans, they often drain your finances because you aren't just paying back what you borrowed, but you're also paying back interest on what you borrowed. So you're paying back extra. While saving, for example, does the opposite because the bank has to pay you interest for you depositing your money into their bank account. And that's why it's so important to understand how interest works, because it's a fundamental part of how Western economies and financial systems work. Number 7 is compound interest. Now, compound interest is the step above interest. Compound interest is basically when you earn interest on your interest. It's basically how small things become big. A simple way to think about it is like gossip. Imagine you tell one person a secret, and then they tell 2 people, and then those 2 people tell 4 people. At first, it doesn't seem like much because you just told one person, but after a while, it spreads, the secret spreads, and it feels unstoppable. Compound interest works the exact same way, where early on growth of your money feels very, very slow, but then later it speeds up. And that's why compound interest, or even compounding in general, because this concept applies to many different things, rewards patience. As the magic isn't in the first piece of gossip or in the first piece of money in this case, but it's in the chain reaction that begins to happen after that. Number 8 is return. This word comes up all the time when we're talking about money, where return is basically the money that you're making from your money. If you invest £100 and it grows to £150, your return is £50 or 50%. If you save £100 and it grows to £110, your return is £10 or 10%. So return is basically the profit that you make on your money. And return comes in many different forms depending on where you're putting your money, and it can also be positive or negative. But here's the key thing: different investments offer different potential returns because they have different levels of risk. Savings accounts only give you interest, which is usually quite a low return, but that's because there's basically no risk. It's very unlikely that you will lose your money if you put it into a bank account. While investing in something like cryptocurrency, for example, has high potential returns, but that's because it's super risky. You could lose all of your money, where generally the higher the potential return, the riskier the investment. And that's why people always talk about high risk, high reward, because the riskier an investment is, the more money you can make if it works out. If it doesn't, you could lose all of your money. You see? Number 9 is inflation. Inflation is very, very simple. It's just a fancy word that is used to describe prices rising over time. A chocolate bar that costs £1 today might cost £1.30 in a few years' time. That's inflation. And it affects every single one of us, as if the return that you're getting on your money is less than inflation, then that means you're basically losing money. As things are becoming expensive faster, then your money is growing. Think of it like this. If inflation is 3% per year, but your savings are only giving you 1%, you're losing 2% per year without even realizing it. And that's why we often say saving isn't enough, because the interest, the return, is just too low. And that's why investing is often the solution, as it gives you a realistic option that allows you to potentially make more than inflation. We now need to understand what investing is, since this is essentially the solution. Remember how we talked about positive cash flow, so the extra money that you have left over each month, and how you should be using that money to build assets. Investing is basically the process of purchasing assets. Investing is basically buying things that increase in value over time, buying things that make you more money. This could include buying stocks, bonds, funds, real estate, or even making investments in your own skills, where investing in these things doesn't just help you beat inflation, but it also allows you to make real money if you invest it wisely. Number 11 is diversification. So we know that we need to invest to build wealth, but how we invest is also very, very important. Diversification means basically putting your money into different types of investments, not putting all of your money into one place or into one investment. Think of it like dating. It's kind of like dating different types of people because you don't want to get your heart broken. You spread the risk, you protect your heart, but you also protect your wallet. The same applies to money, as no one knows what investments will do really well or what investments will crash. So if you put all of your money into one company or into one type of investment, that's incredibly risky. You could lose all of your money. Where diversification allows us to create some stability in our investments, as even if some of our investments are doing really, really badly, there's a good chance that some of our investments might be doing really well. So it kind of helps balance things. So diversification allows you to protect yourself from disaster without limiting your growth. Number 12 is asset allocation. If diversification means not putting all of your eggs into one basket, then asset allocation means deciding how many eggs go into each basket. Where asset allocation is basically how you divide your money between your different investments. For example, how many stocks do you want versus how many bonds do you want? How many UK companies do you want versus international companies? How many risky investments do you want versus less risky investments? Where everyone's asset allocation will be completely different because we're all different people and we all have different goals. But generally speaking, your asset allocation should be based on three things: your age, how much risk you're comfortable with, and how long you can go without touching your money and touching your investments. So remember, there's no perfect asset allocation. There's only an asset allocation that fits your situation. Number 13 is credit scores. A credit score is basically your financial reputation. It's how banks or big companies measure how reliable you are with money. Where your score is shaped by what you do over time. Do you pay your bills on time? Do you keep your debt under control? Do you show that you can handle credit responsibly? And this is so important, more important than you'd think, because most of us will have to borrow money at some point in time for a house, for a car, to start a business. And when you want to borrow that money, they look at your credit score. They look at your credit score and they decide if they're going to give you the money and how much interest they're going to charge you. Where if your credit score is bad and they see you as risky, they're going to charge you high interest. Where if your credit score is good and you have a higher credit score, that means you're more trustworthy, so you're going to get better deals when it comes to borrowing money. So the key idea here is very simple. Pay everything that you owe on time. 14, taxes. Most of us are familiar with what taxes are. They're very, very simple. It's the money that you have to pay to the government. You pay taxes when you make money, you pay taxes when you spend money, you pay taxes when your money makes more money, usually, with taxes just basically reducing the amount of money that you have to keep for yourself. So whenever you set yourself a financial goal, always consider the taxes, always consider the post-tax figure, because that's the money that actually hits your bank account. And finally, number 15 is recessions. Recessions often sound very scary because you hear them in the news, but it's simply when the economy is slowing down. People are spending less, businesses are making less money, more people are unemployed or losing their jobs. And it happens from time to time, but it doesn't last forever. It's simply a natural part of modern economy. So if you ever hear about recessions in the news, don't be scared. Just remember that the economy is simply going through a tough time, and tough times never last. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like more videos like this, make sure you comment down below.